Hey, everybody. How's everybody doing? Welcome to True Crime Tuesday on Thursday. I did have to reschedule this week. So, hey, everybody. I just sent the text out. It probably hasn't even got to most people yet. So, we're going to let them come on in. Let me change this. Let me change this link on the page on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, you may want to come over here to YouTube so that you can watch it. I'm going to cut you guys off here in just a little bit. I just wanted to let you guys know that I was over here. Let's see. And now there's a link on the page if you want to get to the YouTube. It's right under the live that you're currently in. Again, that's if you're on Facebook. Yes, it's true crime. Yeah, we're doing True Crime Tuesday on Thursday because I had to work over on Tuesday. So here we are. Now, I did have a whole other story planned, but this story is trending in the news now. It's happening now. So it probably won't be as long as most stories because it's still in the middle of the story. They haven't even went to court. It just happened. So this will be a story that we'll be able to update as it goes. And when new things are uncovered, I'll be able to tell you guys about it. I think that's interesting just because we get to kind of watch it happen as it goes. So some of you may have heard about this story, some of you may have not. I'm going to give it a little bit of time before people come in, or just give them a little bit of time to come in. If you haven't subscribed to my text alerts, make sure you do that. It's text the number 81010, and in the text box where you normally would put, "Hey girl," just put at FF Outlaws. Make sure you include that at symbol. It is scrolling across. Thank you so much. It's me. It's scrolling across the bottom of your screen. If you didn't get all that, you'll be able to see it there. You've been catching the replays. Yes. So, also, this is true crime. I will be coming back shortly after this to then go right into the malarkey. So, we've got a packed night for you guys. So, hit that thumbs up, ladies, and we're about to get right into it. This story breaks my heart as an ER nurse, as a pediatric nurse, as someone who's worked in labor and delivery and NICU. This is a truly heartbreaking case. So, trigger warning, it does include child abuse and it does involve children. So, if that bothers you, I'm sorry, maybe you can catch the next one. If not, we're going to get right into it. So, let's watch this video first and then we will talk
Somebody
about it.
needs to
Okay.
be held accountable for my.
Hold on. Here we go. Let's back it up. Back it up. I was on here making sure that it would work. Let's see. Oh no. Gonna let me unmute it. Let's see here. I don't know why it's not letting me unmute. Okay. Well, I guess we're gonna have to do it a different way. I don't know. It was just playing. No, it's not. So let's see. Let's fix it. Let's fix it. Of course, technical difficulties. Please hold. Please hold. Good thing I still have it on here. Let's see here.
Somebody needs to be held accountable for my son, for everybody, others' kid. Like, somebody needs to be held accountable. It's too many in such a short period of time.
A Virginia Department of Health report shows Enrique Doctors Hospital, where a nurse charged with child abuse worked, delayed reporting injuries in 2023. A Virginia hospital's actions have drawn scrutiny after 7 babies suffered fractures and a nurse was charged with child abuse. In a report from the Virginia Department of Health, the hospital failed to report suspected abuse in a timely manner after 4 babies were injured in 2023. A year later, 3 more infants experienced fractures. The report reveals that 2 inspectors conducted an unannounced visit to the Enrico Doctors Hospital outside Richmond in September 2023 after the hospital reported 4 premature infants in the neonatal intensive care unit suffered fractures in just 1 month. The report concludes that the facility failed to protect and promote each patient's rights by waiting longer than the time federally required to report suspected child abuse, and by being unable to identify all staff members who came into contact with the NICU patients. In response, the hospital did provide a plan of correction that called for installing 2 new security systems, implementing daily examinations of NICU babies, and launching a unit-wide safety training program. After more babies were injured in 2024, the hospital's NICU stopped admitting patients and a nurse was charged with child abuse. Erin Elizabeth Ann Strotman, 26, was arrested January 2nd on charges of malicious wounding and felony child abuse in connection with an incident that occurred November 10th, court records show. Henrico County Police said in a news release that they have reopened the cases involving mysteriously injured babies at the hospital from 2023 and 2024. Although hospital staff members discovered the 4 fractures between August 5th and September 5th, 2023, the report shows they waited to notify the Department of Social Services until September 20th, 2023. One staff member told inspectors they waited until they consulted outside experts, including a pediatric radiologist, geneticist, neonatologist, and pediatric orthopedist. Excerpts from the experts' findings in the report show one concluded on September 5th that concern for non-accidental trauma is raised, and another wrote on September 6th that they had discussed with the NICU team that non-accidental trauma needs to be considered. Weeks then passed before the hospital alerted the Department of Social Services. The report also detailed the hospital's plan of correction, which did include installing more security cameras. The report showed that the hospital installed cameras on January 17, 2024 in every NICU room, allowing parents to check on their babies at any time. Those cameras appear to have played a key role in Strotman's arrest. In a criminal complaint filed in Henrico County Juvenile and Domestic Relations District Court, a detective writes that video footage from November 10th inside a 5-month-old boy's hospital room shows Strotman applying pressure to the baby's legs, then taking both legs and pushing them so his feet were by his head. The baby looked to be crying and in distress, reads the complaint. Medical staff members later found that the baby had a fractured right femur and tibia and multiple fractured ribs. The Virginia Department of Health said in an email that as of January 1st, it had placed the hospital's license to operate on a conditional renewal status, requiring the hospital to continue prohibiting admissions to the NICU, follow safety processes, and allow regular inspections from licensing personnel. News of Strotman's arrest ignited a social media maelstrom, with people calling for additional charges to be brought against her in connection with the other 6 injured babies and alleging the infants had been targeted because they are African American. In a news release, Henrico police rejected the idea that race played a factor in the suspected abuse. Dominic Hackey, the father of one of the injured babies and a member of the only family that has spoken publicly about their experience, said that although his son is Black, that is not true of all of the injured infants. Understandably, he had a lot to say about this case. Let's take a listen.
It was play nice so that nothing else happens to our babies while we're here, and kind of deal with it when we get out of it.
Dominic Hackey, along with his wife and twin boys, continue to face new realities in the ongoing investigation into the Henrico Doctors Hospital's neonatal intensive care unit. 8 News obtaining the Virginia Department of Health's 2023 investigation report into the NICU, where his son, Noah, along with 3 other children, suffered fractures.
It would have been nice to know what their investigation consisted of instead of open, close, there was no resolution. It truly was an epidemic, and they had the power and the knowledge to stop it, and I feel like they didn't. And as a result, more babies in 2024 had to suffer.
The NICU patients were labeled by number in the report. Patient 1, 3, and 4 had 1 fracture. Patient 2 had 3 fractures. Patient 1 had a fracture to the left tibia, as did Noah.
If they had all this information, why didn't they do anything? Why didn't they protect my son? Why didn't they protect the other boys?
The report also found the hospital failed to identify staff who collect lab specimens from patients in the NICU, as the ongoing revelations make the healing process difficult. But he says now is not the time to stop.
Keep showing up for my son. Keep speaking up for my son. Keep speaking up for these other babies. They deserve so much more than what they got at that hospital.
Henrico Doctors Hospital did list corrections to the deficiencies pointed out in the report, such as extra daily examinations of each NICU and adding 2 new security systems. But even after these changes, 3 more babies were somehow injured.
He also showed up at her arraignment for the November 10th incident of another baby boy.
I remember her being in the room. She was friendly. She answered questions, but she didn't stay and talk like the other NICU nurses did. She wasn't family like the other NICU nurses were. Failed. Strictly, they failed on multiple different levels with multiple different families, and they need to be held accountable as well, because that shouldn't have happened. If they were suspicious of some person enough to let them go, they shouldn't have brought them back. So that's on them. They failed. Simple.
We will continue to work on building cases if there is evidence present to build other cases to find if there's additional criminal culpability.
Families of some of the young victims from both 2023 and 2024 were present for Strotman's arraignment, seen leaving the courtroom in tears, some hugging each other for comfort.
That's a lot, right? That's a lot. Now, this is what they said about the lawyer said on January 2nd, 2025, the defendant Erin Elizabeth Ann Strotman, 26, of Chesterville County, was charged with 1 count of felony child neglect, 1 count of felony malicious wounding for an injury sustained by an infant on or about November 10th, 2024. Now, if you remember those infants that they talked about in 2023, those were actually all hurt between August 5th and September 5th of 2023. 4 infants in 1 month. Now, she actually was charged for an infant that was hurt in November of 2024. So a whole year later. Now, the maximum statutory penalty for felony child neglect is 10 years of incarceration, and the maximum statutory penalty for felony malicious wounding is 20 years of incarceration. The defendant was employed as a nurse at Henrico Doctors Hospital at all times relevant to this investigation, but it is our understanding that she is no longer employed there. She goes on to say the defendant was arraigned on both charges today, January 3rd, and was appointed counsel today. Defense attorney Scott Cardini was appointed for Strotman. The Commonwealth objected to bond, and the court denied bond. While the defendant remains held at the Henrico County Jail, the court further ordered the defendant to have no contact with any child under the age of 18. The next court date is March 24th, 2025 at 2 p.m. First, my thoughts are with the families of the injured children who suffered harm while in a facility designed to protect comfort and care. I would also echo the remarks made by Chief Eric English earlier today in recognizing the dedicated work of Henrico Police Division and Henrico Child Protective Services, as well as the staff of my office. Furthermore, I thank both the Virginia Department of Health and Virginia State Police for their assistance. While there have been an arrest for 1 person for allegedly inflicting injury on a single victim, I would emphasize this is an ongoing investigation spanning potential offenses committed in both 2023 and 2024. I assure the public that the investigation of these matters will be thorough, and if sufficient evidence arises to establish the criminal culpability of other individuals, Additional charges will be brought forthwith without fear of or favor to any party. All persons charged with criminal offense are presumed to be innocent. The fact a person has been charged with an offense is not evidence of guilt, and the Commonwealth bears the burden of proving each element of every charged offense beyond a reasonable doubt. And that is Shannon Taylor, Henrico Commonwealth's attorney. So a lot of people with this case, you can see here, this was the arrest warrant for a class 4 felony. They issued it. You can see here 1/2/25, and that's when she was arrested. Now, people, when this was first alleged, this story first came out, it was said that even to me, the reason that I started looking into this case, someone had messaged me and said that this nurse was accused of hurting these children and that they were all African American baby boys. Now it looks like from all the evidence that has been presented that they were boys, that they were all boys, but that their races were not all African American. So regardless of their race, I think it's insane that these babies, not only these are the most vulnerable population of infants that are born. These are the NICU babies. The Dominic Hackey, the family, the man that spoke out for his family, they actually had twins, Noah and Micah. Noah was born healthy, otherwise healthy. Besides being born, the twins were born 2.5 months early, and they were in the NICU. And his brother Micah had needed help breathing and things like that. Noah again was healthy, except for, of course, being premature. And then this happened where he suffered a fracture to his tibia. They also talked about the other ones that were hurt. The baby that she was charged with was actually I feel like one of the worst cases of the 7, where she is seen on camera. Now, as they said, these 4 infants were hurt in a month's time frame in 2023. They installed these cameras due to them getting these 2 inspectors showed up unannounced and gave them all of these things that they did wrong. So they installed these cameras on January 17th of 2024, and this interaction with this baby boy was on November 10th. So 10 months later after installing the cameras. And she is seen in the camera, like in the evidence, she's seen in the video going up to examine the child, and it looks like she takes both of his feet and pushes them to his ears, and you can see the baby is crying in distress. This child actually suffered a femur fracture, which is the big bone, like your thigh bone, a tibia fracture, which is like your shin bone, and several ribs that were fractured. Now, they do say that she was a nurse during all of these times, but they haven't said that if she was the one responsible for all of them. It is an open and ongoing case. Yes, Kai, they're the most vulnerable population in the hospital. I mean, even more so than any other population, even elderly, because they are, well, newborns are vulnerable, period. But then you take on that they are a NICU baby, and it just gets worse and worse. They did the 4 infants that were hurt from August till September. They failed to report. Now they only have, they better keep her in PC. But when they find out, thank you, Wildflower. When they find out, I'm so sorry, Tanya. When they find out something like this, or if a child is hurt or there's a safety issue, anything that happens to a child, they only have 24 hours to report the incident. Now, not only was this done for 4 infants within a month's time, but they did not even report any of them until September 20th. Now, their excuse for that was that they wanted to bring in their own experts to look at the case, but that's not what federal law says. You don't get time to bring in your own experts. No, you should have reported each of those within 24 hours. They should have been reported due to their negligence of not following their policies and the law, they allowed for other people to do this. Yes, kill it. Well, they also usually if there's an incident that happens at the hospital, usually the nurse is the first one they throw under the bus. It's usually never the doctor, never anything like that, right? But in this case, the nurse directly, it wasn't a med error, it wasn't anything like that. This is pure abuse. This is not something, and I can't understand. Just like Hacky said, and I'm looking for more information on she was allegedly suspended. Exactly, Nina. You report first. And then if you want to bring in experts to look at things to try to figure out what happened, that's perfectly okay. But you report it first so they can do their own investigation while you do yours. But it is said that, and you heard Dominic Hackey, which was the parent of Noah, one of the twins born in the NICU, and he said, if you've let this nurse go before, why did you let her back? Now, I'm trying to find more information on that. I've been unsuccessful with finding what happened or if she was actually suspended um, and then brought back. I do know that they did fire her, obviously, when she was charged, or I think it was actually before, because they came out on January 1st and said they would not be that they would not be taking any more NICU patients. And then I believe the warrant was issued on the 2nd, and she was fired. So they should all be charged. And of course, I do believe that at least for the infant, Dominic Hackey's infant that had the tibia fracture, now nobody has been charged for that incident of his son. No one's been charged yet. They've not said whether they can say that she was employed the entire time when that happened and all 7 of the infants were hurt, but they don't have evidence or haven't been able to go forward with charging her for each of the infants. Now, the saddest part is that in 2023 there would have been no cameras. There would have been no way for them to know or have evidence of who did that. Not only that, but they found that they weren't even keeping track of who was even assessing or around these babies or anything like that. They had no system to be able to say, okay, well, the infant was hurt from the hours of 0400 to 0900, and these are the people that were in the room. They can't even do that because they didn't even have a system in 2023 that would have told you who was pulling the labs. They said that I know in the report I read that some of the staff members said, well, one person may print the ticket for the like the sample, if they're going in to get blood or whatever. They would say, one staff member may print the label, but then another staff member may be the one who goes and actually gets the sample. So again, there was no way for them to even know who has been in access with these patients. And again, these are NICU babies. Why the hell is there not something in place that you're able to say, okay, well, if something happened in these hours that you can't say, well, this is the only person that was in there. They had no way of knowing. So, hey, Christine, it is a horrible case. And I pray that someone is held responsible for not just this one infant in November of 2024, but all of the infants, all, 7 of them, 6 plus the one that she's been charged with. Now, did other staff members know? And they, did they cover it? Did the hospital? Obviously, the hospital, in my opinion, it looks like they were trying to cover their tracks. Here's the crazy part. So between August 5th and September 5th, these 4 infants were hurt. On September 5th, these experts that were supposed to be conducting their own, their own investigation. On September 5th, one of them said that you need to look at non-accidental trauma. Then on the 6th of September, another expert that was doing an investigation said they sat down with a team of NICU employees and said, you need to look at non-accidental trauma. It needs to be considered. Now, you think about that. You had in 1 month, you had 4 NICU babies that had fractures. You hired these experts to do their own investigation, and not one, but 2 of them told you on the 5th and 6th of September that this was non-accidental trauma, and you still waited until September 20th to report this to social services? Not only did you not follow federal guidelines, as 24 hours is all you have, but then you waited after 2 of your experts that you hired to investigate it, you waited another 2 weeks before you reported it. It makes no sense to me unless the hospital was trying to cover their tracks, cover their ass, and that's just my opinion. Period. Um, Oh, thank you, Casey. Unfortunately, her charges will get run concurrently and she won't do nearly the time she deserves. Yes, because as of now, they're telling the public that she's facing up to 30 years in jail. Sadly, like you said, it'll be concurrent and she'll probably serve 10 years, if that. Hopefully, I can only hope that in this case that they find some way of proving that it was her who did this. Now, there are 4 of the NICU infants were in 2023, but there were 3 children, 3 infants that were hurt in 2024. Now, this is after the cameras were installed. So I am assuming that the other 2 infants that were hurt in 2024, that those charges will come sooner than later because they do have cameras. So I'm praying that those, at least those other 2 children are on camera and this is happening, that they can show it. But they have reopened all of the cases. So all 7, because here's the thing, when this man's child got hurt, this Dominic Hackey, his child got hurt, I believe in September was when his child got hurt. Now, they opened an investigation. The hospital came to him and said, we cannot tell who it was that hurt your child. The police opened it. They basically said the same thing, that the case was closed. They told him that we know it was intentional, but we don't know who did it. Now, CPS also opened an investigation during that time. They came back with a level 1, meaning that it was done, it was abuse, and they still closed that case because they could not put it on anyone. So his son's case was actually closed. And he was basically told, like, hey, we know someone did it on purpose. We know it wasn't an accident, but we can't do anything about it. Because at first, the hospital tried to tell him that his child received this fracture from an injection. Most babies, they get the vitamin K injection in their foot. So they were saying basically that the injection was given too hard. And that's what happened to his tibia. That's why he had a fractured tibia. Now, most people may think, oh my God, how could an injection fracture a tibia? But you have to understand his twins were 2.5 months early. They're little, I mean, I can't remember exactly how much they weighed. I think a couple pounds each. So you have to think their little tibia is very fragile. I mean, it's a very small compared to our tibia, which is, our shin basically. They are very small. So they were trying to tell this parent that it was an injection and that they were going to have, classes about safer injections and handling these babies and things like that. But they closed all of the cases as far as criminal negligence or anything like that. So until this happened, where they reopened this case, he thought that he was never going to get justice for his child. And granted, this is not his child that she's being charged with, but again, they did go and reopen every case that had an infant that had a mysterious fracture. So again, I can only hope that they will, in opening the case, that they will be able to do something further about these infants and not just say, well, we know it was on purpose, but we can't figure out who it was. He said that was a very hard pill to swallow. That basically, they knew his son had been done wrong, but they couldn't pinpoint who it was. I mean, that would be so frustrating to me. He did say, you heard in the video where he said, she just wasn't like the other NICU nurses. She wasn't family like they were. So she did get She did get her license. I believe she got her license in 2019. Let's see here. Yep, she received her nursing license in May of 2019, and her certification remained active online as of when she was arrested. So I'm sure that will change. And of course, the hospital is not accepting any more babies to their NICU out of an abundance of caution. It says for babies needing NICU care, we will assess them, stabilize, and facilitate a transfer to an appropriate facility once available. It also said it has taken immediate steps to enhance safety measures at the hospital, including installing those security systems. But I think, obviously this is going to be an ongoing case where we will be able to follow along and see what happens and see what goes on with these additional cases. I couldn't imagine anything happening to my son, 2015, or daughter while they were in the NICU. I mean, can you imagine thinking about, this family? Because the reason I continue to speak on just this family is because they are the only family of the 7 that have come out publicly and spoke about this. So that's why I keep referencing them, because again, they're the only ones that have spoken at all. But they said there were several families that did show up for her arraignment, but they refused to. So you can imagine. So just like this family, the Hackeys, they had a twin pregnancy, very high risk. The twins were born 2.5 months early. Noah was born seemingly healthy besides being premature. Micah had to have different, help to breathe. I mean, he was not he was not stable when he was born. So you're already going through this. You're already going through the fact that you have now 2 NICU babies, which is a whole other experience. If you've not been through it, it is something that is hard to even imagine or explain how everything goes. But you have 2 babies in the NICU. You're worried about them. You have your wife in, who's just given birth. You're worried about all those things, and then you haven't even held your son, and he was told, "Well, his foot looks a little discolored, so I'm not sure, you guys could hold him today." And they go do an X-ray and then say, "Oh, well, his tibia is fractured." Like, what? You expect the NICU of all places that that's where the baby needs to be. That's the safest place for the baby. And then something like that happens. I can't imagine. Are the other families quiet because of closed settlements with the hospital? I don't think so, two T's. I don't think they've even got there yet. This is so new with everything happening. I don't think so, because it doesn't seem like they were even offering them settlements or even offering them anything like that. Basically, they were telling them, like, hey, we're doing an investigation. And then when the investigation would lead nowhere, they would just tell them, hey, the investigation is closed. So I'm sure at some point that they will, especially this man, Dominic Hackey, he said that the hospital will be held accountable and he will make sure of it. So I'm sure at some point there will be, civil suits and things like that. This is horrible. My son weighed 1 pound, 13 ounces, and the NICU staff had all my trust. And that's how it should be. And went off on NICU for trying to down a passy in my child's mouth in 2006. I couldn't imagine my reaction to broken bones. As a NICU mom, I cannot imagine. Exactly, Charity. Yes, NICU is, it's sad because it truly makes parents paranoid. It makes not even just parents, but it makes anyone who's going to the hospital, it ruins the trust for everyone. And that's why I can't stress enough, any job or anything like that, there's always some bad apples. But even in nursing school, you could always tell who was there for the money or thought, oh, this is a good way to get money, and who was there for the patients or who was there for the patient care. You could always tell. And it's sad because if you want to make money and you're after something to get a bag, I promise you the medical field is not where you want to be. Do not get into the medical field because it's a good career or it's a stable job or it's for the money. Do not do it, because one, you won't last. If you even get through nursing school, you still won't last once you get out, because truly it's not for you. It's not about the money. Even though you get, again, that's why I stress on here, like, just because you get paid for something doesn't mean you do it for the money. Because again, if you do something like nursing for the money, you should not, and you will not last long, and you will get burnt out. Let me read some of these. The one thing that get you really up in prison is hurting children. Yes. I would be scared to talk first. I commend them for speaking up. I do too. This reminds me of one nurse, I think in 2017, she was also over NICU babies. She was injecting air in their bloodstream and injecting insulin in those babies. Yes, I did just read a story similar to that. Hopefully, justice is done. No, Amy, they did not have cameras in there before. And I was looking at this to see if it's common because any NICU that I have been in, there's cameras. They do that for a number of reasons, mostly safety, but they do it to watch the parents. I mean, there's, like I said, several reasons they do that. So I don't know if that's something that most NICUs don't have. I know the NICUs that I've been in all had cameras. So I'm not sure how that works. I'm not sure if, because they obviously didn't. And what was wild to me is that they are part of HCA Healthcare, which is a huge healthcare organization that has hospitals all over the US. So I was surprised. I was surprised. It's like if you've ever worked in a restaurant and you've worked for like a mom and pop shop versus like a corporate restaurant, it's kind of the same thing. Like they're like a corporate, hospital system. So they usually have these policies and these things over all of their hospitals. So I was quite surprised that they didn't already have that in place. The hospital's covering things up. Every bit as guilty as the one committing the abuse by not reporting the case is so sickening. I pray for justice. And that's the thing. And I think that is definitely also where the parents will be able to sue them because it's if they reported those 4 in 1 month, it could have been able to save those other 3 children from ever having to deal with this. But because they did not report, to me, that shows negligence on their part. So again, she is the one who they allege that has done these things. Obviously, they've only charged her with one of the babies, but it does seem like she may be the one who is responsible for all 7. Now, I would be surprised if there is another NICU nurse that was doing this, unless they were like in cahoots, like buddies or something, which usually it's not like that. Usually it's the one nurse, and especially if she's been employed this entire time. And as the dad had said, that he had heard she had been suspended and then was hired back. Now, again, I can't find anything on that. I am going to keep looking for that because I would love to see the documents or if they've put anything out because trust me, I've been looking and haven't been able to find it. But that would be even more of a negligence is if they have suspended her, especially if it had anything to do with maybe possibly harming a patient or patient safety issues. If they did suspend her and brought her back, that's even more negligence. So that they should have been Tinkerbell because, like I said, it's HCA. So I'm pretty sure they're all that way because it was HCA in Virginia. Let me see real quick. It says HCA hospitals in Virginia are. Let's see. Let's see if Henrico. Yeah. Yes, Henrico Doctors Hospital in Richmond, Virginia is accredited by the Joint Commission, JCO, as we call it. So yes, I thought so. Most all HCA facilities are, uh, you know, have JCO or whatever. So that is another thing, they're supposed to come in and do all of this. Seizures had me down. I missed it. Okay, Sky Divine. But yeah, so this is definitely a case that going forward, she does go to court. I believe it said March. Was it March 24th? So she goes to court in March again, and we'll see how this plays out. I for one am hoping that they find out whether it was her or whether it was another nurse. I just pray that they find whoever is responsible for the other children in these cases because there are 7 overall. It looks to be that all 7 patients are boys from the reports that have already came out, it seems that they are boys. So, but again, they do say that they are of different ethnic backgrounds. So again, when the first reports came out that they were all African American babies, that does not seem to be the case. Even Dominic Hackey, which was the dad of Noah Hackey, which was one of the twins in the NICU, he even said, he has met some of the parents because they were at the arraignment, and he has talked to some of the parents, and he even said, they were not all African American children, babies. So I do find it odd though that if they are all boys, if that was something, I'm also interested to see her background as far as like her personal background. We know that she was a nurse in 2019, that she became a nurse in 2019, but I'm curious to see if maybe she has had issues with maybe fertility. She was 26 years old. So I'm wondering, does she have, I don't think she has any children of her own, but has she had miscarriages? What is her past? What is her background? Not that it excuses anything, but I am interested to know how this came about and whether or not she will speak out or say anything about this. I'm sure her lawyer, she was appointed, I believe the court appointed her an attorney. Obviously she's now not employed, so she is unemployed, not making any money. So she did, I believe, get a court appointed attorney. So I doubt they'll let her speak at all. But I feel like why was it boys? Why all boys? You didn't hurt any girls? I don't know. I feel like there's something to that. I feel like there is a method to that madness, and it is truly madness if you'll hurt a child. Our NICU has a badge scanner. Yes, and that's another thing. The fact that they didn't even know who was in there taking blood samples or taking samples from these children, that is in itself is alarming. Again, it's alarming that they can't even say, well, if he had got a fracture between, 5 and 6, we don't even know who the hell was in there. Like, that's sad as hell. I just can't believe that they can even say those things. There's breaking news on the Sebastian Rogers case. I know I heard you mention that case. Yes. Oh, you knew Katie, his mom was in hiding? I'm gonna have to check that out. Thank you so much. Time out with Tina. I always something like that when we hear these stories. Yes, it's always like, what happened? What made her target these people? That's okay, Tilly. Yeah, hurting I just, I just, and someone who's a nurse. I mean, they laugh all the time out here and say, "Oh, she's a nurse," but we do take an oath, do no harm, and that's for our patients, obviously. So for her to be in that position as a nurse, you're trusted. These parents are trusting you with their children that aren't only just newborns, but these are NICU babies. These are babies that are usually premature or have some, pre-existing issue. I mean, I just can't imagine. Not only were you in the role of a nurse, but you're in the role of a NICU nurse, and then you purposely, it's not like it was negligence, like you didn't do something you were supposed to do. No, you were inflicting pain on these children for whatever sick, twisted thing that gave you, I don't even know the emotion it would give you. You did this to, I'm assuming, all 7 of these children. Because again, I find it very odd if there would be more than one nurse that was doing this type of behavior to a child. You ate your your weight in Mexican street corn. But yeah, so this is a very hard case, and I will be updating you guys as it goes along. If you guys happen to see anything and I don't update you guys, let me know because I am going to be watching this. Unfortunately, without solid proof of the ones before the cameras, she probably won't be charged. The parents would be able to sue the hospital, but some things money doesn't make up for. Another thing, I'm glad you said that. Another thing. So because a lot of people had the question, are all 7 of these babies still alive, or did they make a recovery? Did this somehow may play a part in if they aren't still here? They did say that they were not allowed to talk about whether all 7 of the newborns are still alive at this point. I will be interested to find that out. If there was one that didn't make it, were the injuries that they received part of that? So I feel like there's going to be a lot of layers to this case, and things that we're going to find out as it goes. I know, Misty. I just can't imagine. But yeah, so and here's another thing, Tinkerbell. So I agree with you. I think the babies in 2023, which include this man's infant, the twin, Noah, I believe those 4 babies in 2023, they will not be able to pin this on her because they didn't have cameras and um they already were in violation because they couldn't prove who had been attending to these NICU babies or who was even in these NICU babies' rooms or area or whatever, wherever they may be. So the 4 in 2023, I think will be extremely hard to charge one person with it. However, due to the fact that the hospital failed to report and the hospital failed to do, not only their own protocols, but federal law, I feel like that themselves, those 4 families will definitely be able to sue the hospital. However, I don't think that they'll be able to link her to those unless it's something like circumstantial evidence where if they find her to be guilty on camera of these 3 babies in 2024, maybe they'll be able to do something as far as like if the uh, injuries match, if she was the nurse that was on their case, things like that. Maybe they'll be able to pin it on her with those things, like, that she was the nurse when they got hurt, sustained looked very similar, things like that. They may be able to. If you're just joining, we were speaking about the nurse in Virginia who was just charged with um, child abuse and malicious wounding. There are 7 infants in total, 4 from 2023 and 3 from 2024 that were hurt at the same NICU facility. It's an HCA facility in Virginia, and she was charged with 1 child's abuse that was in November. I think it was on November 10th. After the hospital implemented security system cameras in all NICU rooms, they were able to find out that she did indeed cause the fracture of this infant on November 10th. But there are 6 other infants that have had similar injuries, and they have reopened all of their cases. So she is in jail right now. They denied her bond. She isn't going to get out, and her next court date is in March. So we'll be there to follow along with this case. I hope you guys enjoyed True Crime Tuesday on Thursday this week because we did have to reschedule. Make sure you sign up for those text alerts, and I will see you guys again for a new story on Tuesday for True Crime Tuesday. Thank you guys so much. And if you're watching the replay, #replay, and we'll be following this case for sure. Thanks for everybody who tuned in. I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye. Yes, Amy. She worked in the NICU through the whole entire time of all 7 babies being hurt. So, yes, she was in the NICU and worked for them at the time of those other babies as well. So, thank you guys. And I will see you in a little bit for the malarkey. Stay tuned.